Welcome to this second last session here at the Black and Bright First Nations Literary Festival. My name's Daniel Browning. I'm the presenter rather. I don't know what I am. The presenter of the art show, former producer and presenter of Away, and currently I'm editor of Indigenous Radio at the ABC. I'd like to begin, obviously, by acknowledging the Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri and all the clans of the Kulin. And I thank them for their custodianship of country and their care for country and their love of country. Without that, we wouldn't be having the conversations we've been having this weekend. So welcome. This event is Big Screen Writing. And I'd like to introduce our panel, our modest panel of two people. Tony Briggs is a Yorta Yorta Wurundjeri actor, writer, director and producer. His twice Helpman Award-winning play, The Sapphires, the story of his mother and aunt, evolved into the internationally acclaimed award-winning film that premiered at the Cannes Film Festival 2012. It won 2 Augie Awards and 11 of 12 categories at the Actors in 2013. He's also the co-originator, executive producer and writer of the 8-part TV series The Warriors from 2016. Other writing credits include My Place, Series 2, Episode 3, that's 2010, and the Sapphires animation series in 2015. As an actor of over 20 years, he holds many credits to his name, including feature roles in The Slap, Broken Shore, Clever Man, 7 Types of Ambiguity, and Rake. Please welcome Tony Briggs. And Nayuka Gorry is a Gunai, Kurnai, Gunditjmara, Wiradjuri and Yorta Yorta writer. Nayuka's work explores black, queer and feminist politics, as well as black, queer and blurred, black and nerd culture. And Nayuka's television writing includes Get Crackin', co-writing and performing in black comedy, and the 5-part children's series Thalu. Please welcome Nayuka Gorry. A bit of a delayed reaction off the back of the audience there. I want to talk, Tony, first to you about maybe not so much the recent past or your credits, but the work that you're doing adapting that extraordinary book of Tony Birch's, The White Girl, for film. Tell me about that process, because sometimes The Sapphires teaches us a few lessons about intellectual property and other things, but tell us about The White Girl.
Yeah, well, The White Girl, so Birchie came to us and asked if we would be interested in working with him on his works. And after the initial shock of Tony Birch coming and asking us to, we sort of woke up and just kind of got on with it. I mean, it's been a process. All these things, adapting any kind of work is a process. You have to kind of come to a clear understanding with the original work. The artist who created the original work, and know that you can work together in the first place. And if just to sort of get a sense and a taste of what it is that you want to say in the work and what is being said in the work, because you have to create these things. You have to remember it's a completely different canvas that you're creating it for, and a very different audience often that you're creating it for as well. And while at the same time you have to be true to the heart and the core and the very soul of the original work. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. And with The White Girl, it's a story, essentially, it's a story that all Aboriginal people know. It's a story about a young girl who is trying to, stay away from the government, stay away from being, stolen, basically. And her grandmother is looking after her, and they go on this. It's kind of like I see it like a thriller. Tony has always described it as a love story. And it really, that resonates with me quite a lot, because you see this sort of this adventure, you see this adventure happening with these two, these two people for survival. And this story, we as Aboriginal people really know, it really resonates with me. And every time I, work on this book, or every time I read the book, I always think about my grandmother and the story that she told me that for the very first time when, it was starting to become, an interest to the Australian media, the stolen generation, when it first started coming into the consciousness of the public. And she told me her story, and it was the first time I'd ever seen my grandmother cry, and it shocked me to the core, because it came, left of centre. It was not something that I expected on that particular day, especially, and it always stuck with me. So when I work on this particular project, I'm always reminded of my nan, and the strength and the incredible courage that it has taken, or it took, for her to keep our family intact, as best that she could, given the circumstances that she'd been dealt with. And then, as an extension of that, I always think about every other Aboriginal family that I know, every other Aboriginal person that I know who has been affected by those policies. So working on this, we have to really keep true to the heart and the soul and the core of what Tony has written, and that's what it's about for me.
I mean, I think that the novel for me is about the landscape of fear. It's about terror. There's terror at every point in the novel, and the titular white girl is this young, really captivating young character, but her grandmother is extraordinary. And it also strikes me as a book about black matriarchy.
Absolutely.
There are very few, I hate to say it, but very few well-defined or well-articulated male characters. Well, they're there, but it really follows those two women very closely.
Well, it is the women that have allowed us as men to be here. And
I think that's forgotten sometimes.
It's totally forgotten. It's forgotten all of the time. And I kind of pinch myself at, how lucky I am, to have had my first story to do what it did. And all these things fell into place. I just saw it as a great story, as in the Sapphires. And now for this to be handed to me in the way it has been, and the other people, and members of my team as well, I can't really kind of put into words how fortunate I am to have had, to have the opportunity to tell another incredible story about remarkable women who have allowed me to be, ultimately allowed me to be here today.
And it's very filmic too. I mean, I think the writing is filmic.
Yeah.
And I think that helps in...
Tony's characters are they're salt of the earth people. They're very real people that most of us can, really relate to. And I think that's the power of the story, of his storytelling. When he tells stories, you just instantaneously recognise the characters that he creates. And there's no airs and graces about Birchie at all, as those of us who know him, it's just straight to the point, and and that's how he writes, and that's how his characters, come off the page, and that's how they speak. It's just straight to the point. Let's get on with it. We've got things to do. We've got survival to take care of. Let's go, and that's what it's about for me.
We'll come back to The White Girl and your other work in film over the years, but Nayuka, I'm just thinking about being in the writer's room for black comedy and for Get Crackin', the anarchy and the chaos of Get Crackin'. Tell me about the experience. What's it like to be in a writer's room? Was it always a positive experience?
I've done a lot of them now for a bunch of so much of what we see on television would be I'm sure some nerd's done the numbers, but it would be about 5% of what the Australian public spends money on. So shows in development. I've lost count of the amount of writers' rooms I've done, and some of them are just atrocious. I had some pretty shitty experiences earlier on where it was just who could make the edgiest racist joke or something, stuff like that. But then there are times when you creatively fall in love with people. Especially with comedy, I've found that with a handful of people where I don't know, I feel like the saying's really capitalist. It's like, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I think that's only specific in this one occasion where you get to write fart jokes and you keep pitching the same fart joke, but the producer's like, shut up, Nayuka, no, we're not, stop, what's with the fart joke? Except I'm lying, it's not a fart joke, it's a dick joke, but it's like, no. And every season he's like, no, we're not doing it. So like, yeah, I love writers' rooms when there's times when you can be silly and like you're with people and you can like you really get each other. But other times they can also be incredibly boring. Yeah, just yeah. Like I think even I don't know. I really like being around funny, smart people. And if there's not, even if it like across genres, if like I've done a bit of work now with Ryan Griffin across different genres, and even though we might be, you know, talking about a like detective series, we're still having a lot of fun in the room, whatever it might be. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question, but dick jokes. I love them.
When are you going to get that dick joke in?
Well, Mark O'Toole, if you're listening, look, you know, I'm saving that character. That character will make an appearance one day. No, I don't think there is a broadcaster that would greenlight the character who isn't brave enough yet in 2022.
That must be some dick joke.
No, it's not. It's so silly. That's yeah. It's anyway. Let's move on.
Move on from dicks. So Thalu, tell me about Thalu. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah. It was a lot of fun because, well, it was a kids show, and I think it's the first kids show I've worked on. But like, yeah, I think I said it in one interview, it might have been, I forget who it was with, but funny is funny. And it's like, if kids have a really good sense of humour. So it was, yeah, it was just really fun dialogue. Yeah, just also the thing I loved about that process is that young black fellas from a particular community had developed it and had given a lot of the okay, and I think like were a part of the process. So by the time it got to me, it was like pretty much like a beat sheet, or it was, you know, like particular, like I got would get a scene breakdown or whatever. So and young people had been involved in the process. Yeah, so it was really, I don't know, it was a really cool way to work. And also, I think writing for children, because like has been made obvious, like I can be quite sweary and like filthy, but when you have parameters around that, it forces you to become creative and funny in a different way. Yeah, which I think is really good for creativity. Yeah.
Tony, you would have been in a fair few writers' rooms. I mean, the whole work of adaptation is an extraordinary undertaking. You talked about keeping true to the spirit of Tony Birch's novel and the feeling and the emotion and the power of that novel. I mean, that's an incredible challenge as a director to kind of take a work, the written word, and transpose it into cinema. Yeah,
but at the same time, you've got to give yourself. You've got to respect your own process as well, and you can't just sort of kowtow to what another person's vision is necessarily. Birchie, he's just said, "Oh, you know, my work's done. I'm just stepping away from it, and you know, you do what you need to do." He doesn't interfere at all. Or I mean, you know, he's done a workshop with us, and he's told us certain things, and I just take it on board. You know?
Do you feel? Here, I'm topping you. Sorry, Dan.
No, it's fine.
I have any yarn, it's fine.
That's how conversation works.
I'm
just here to keep time. I'm just here to keep time. Really.
No, I was gonna. Do you feel like it's translation in a way?
Adapting someone's story.
Is it an act of translation?
To a certain point, I think it is. Yeah, because like I said earlier, it's a different canvas, and you have to create the story for a big. This is going to be a feature film, so you have to do it for a big screen and a big audience, and we did a little bit of. see, the other thing too is that we have to remember here in this country that we're also, most of us are so familiar with, you know, what the stolen generation is about, and you know, most of us, well, all of us blackfellas, you know, we know what it's about, you know, and there's a lot of whitefellas who are still kind of catching up, but they still know what it's about. What I found really fascinating is with some of the work with the pre-work that we've done already with some people, international people, they're absolutely blown away that there is a stolen generation still. They've not seen anything like this, according to them, on the screen. And Rabbit-Proof Fence, you know, there's been snippets, you know, snippets in Sapphires, which none of them saw anyway, you know, so we're all familiar with it. So you've got to keep that kind of thing in mind and what it is that you're writing for. So it is kind of like that. But you've also, there's so many different sort of, there's so many different points that you have to kind of be conscious of when you're adapting a work like this. So many different, you know, so many different things you have to look out for and understand. And like when we did the Sapphires, the first thing Keith Thompson said, who was the co-writer of the film, the first thing he said to me on the first day when we were in the office was, okay, now we have to get away from the play. Now, I was like, it was the first thing he said, and I was like, it just sort of totally threw me, and I said, why would we want to do that when it was a hit all over the country? He said, we're writing for a bigger audience. We're writing for that audience, absolutely, but it's a bigger, there's a bigger audience who don't know about this yet. And, you know, and then Chris O'Dowd came on, and then that sort of changed, and then my whole thing, I was like, oh yeah, of course, because, you know, they didn't know about it. And it's really interesting, there's some of the stuff that we've done with The White Girl already, some workshops that we've done, you know, a year or so ago, people we were talking to from, you know, Europe and, you know, just have no idea, and they love the book and love the story. And so, you know, and also the book has been sold in different countries as well, and doing quite well from what I understand. So I have to kind of keep an eye on that as we're shaping it. But, you know, I'm not writing it, just saying, I'm leaving that up. That's Dallas Winmar is actually adapting the book. So,
and Dallas, you know, one of her credits is Yibby Young, written for stage.
Yeah.
Tell me about, you know, I think Tony Birch came to you and said, I want Dallas Winmar to write the adaptation.
No, Birchie knows Dallas. He knows her work, and he's got a lot of respect for her. He basically he hasn't dictated anything like that. He's just said, I want to work with you, and you know, I love him, so I'm like, yeah, of course. So
Whatever you want.
whatever you want, bros. You know, you want to direct it, write it, star in it, whatever.
Tony Birch as the white girl.
Yeah, as the white girl. He'll probably have a cameo too. But no, he's not, like, he just, like, you know, he knows, he stays in his lane and I stay in my lane, and that's how things really get done, because that really is about respecting each other and the skill and the talent that you bring to whatever it is that you're trying to do. And you know, you always kind of align at some point anyway. You know, I respected what Keith said, you know, because he had so many more years of experience. I'd be a fool to, my first meeting on the first day, to have my first fight. We had one fight on that thing, and
Was the first day?
Fight in inverted commas. I mean, it was like
Creative
creative. What do you
difference.
call it?
Thing, yeah, creative difference.
Little creative tiff sort of thing. but it, you know, it
They're
worked out
good.
fine. I think they're healthy actually.
Yeah.
When you just got to pick and choose what you do. You can't be just battling. Because at the end of the day, you've got your child there watching the fight, and then that child's not developing at all. You know, you have a bickering over this, bickering over that, bickering, and the child's not growing at all. Whereas
The child being the work.
Child being the work,
yeah.
exactly.
There's not a child just watching it.
Yeah. No. Child being the work.
Well, I hope
Sorry
not.
about that analogy. I hope I
Frame,
didn't confuse everybody there.
The child's here.
And two children fighting, you know. So, you know, we just sort of moved on and created this, you know, amazing piece together. And that's, I have a very similar feeling about this project, you know, and working with Adele, I've known Adele, well, you know, I can't even remember how long I've known her for. So many years, we're really close. And her process is her process. And if I get in her way, like unintentionally, I wouldn't deliberately do it. She just tells me. I go, oh, okay, cool, no worries. Vice versa. So we'll see. We'll see how we go.
Have you cast?
No, we're just at the first draft stage. We're pretty much almost done, and then we're just sort of going through there's a whole process, you know, there's a few more drafts, but she's very fast worker. So we don't know, we don't have any dates or anything like that, but we who knows, it could be sooner than I expect to be, you know, getting this. We got to get funded first. That's always the hardest.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Now, do you dream about your own work, getting your own work, something like, you know, The White Girl adapted for screen? Do you think, are you thinking about it as a writer or as an adapter or as someone who's coming to the experience kind of fresh?
I really love television. Yeah, I think that's where my heart is, but also there's also a short story that I've like been tinkering with and like flirting with the Malthouse with, like to adapt on stage, and it's really hard. It is, it's a really hard thing. Like as a short story, it's really, really good, and then after that, I'm like, oh, actually, like I thought you just write, but it's not. It's so much more than that. And I think sometimes you think you can do all the things, but you can't. Like there are particular lanes that you should stick to. In saying that, I'll just keep trying because I'm stubborn. But yeah, for me, I think my passion and heart is in television. Yeah, but actually, I love watching stuff, and yeah, if it's a film, if it's TV, if it's on stage, whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a particular power in television that I think we forget sometimes. We're talking about feature films, but television is an incredibly powerful, immediate medium.
It's also it's changed a lot in the last, well, you know, like what was there, The Wire, you know, Sopranos, 6 Feet Under, and then now, you know, we've got this. Yeah, it's like it's
completely changed.
It's completely changed. And I wonder, what does that mean for blackfellas, and what does that mean for our storytelling if we're no longer necessarily tethered to, like traditionally we've sort of been tethered to the ABC or, you know, like
a linear broadcaster.
Yeah, exactly. But now we have, you know, like, why can't we work with HBO? Why can't we work with like Paramount Plus or, you know?
That's exactly
it's
right.
huge. It's, almost limitless. I guess it depends on how much you want to sell your soul. But also, I feel like we're going to enter, or we are entering a really, really exciting time for blackfellas in television because, I mean, I guess writing for like feature films is an art form in itself. Like you have a specific time lot, like you've, you know, hitting different marks at different, you know, time points or whatever. And like taking that from a book, I just like that. You'd have to have such a brilliant mind. But like, I think I like the idea of TV because I'm like lazy. I'm like, you can just you don't have to put it all in that, you know, just get another season to, you know, to figure out the other bits.
Next episode.
That's season 2's problem.
One of the things about TV though is that it's super fast. Everything's like, you know, and once you get going in a production and you're writing a season of a show, then you kind of always pre-planning and you even before you actually start the first episode, so you're pre-planning all of that stuff. But once you get going and you're making changes on the run, you're making changes on set, and like the writer is never ever stopping. You know, right down to
like
the
literally
last day.
before, like you can lock in your script, but it'll change.
Yeah, it'll change. Yeah, and directors will be, no, that doesn't work sometimes. You know, so, you know, what if you're starting with a book and you're adapting it for a television series, and you know, as a reader, you create in your mind what these characters look like, and sometimes you'll see something on television, you go, oh, that looks nothing like what I thought she would look like or they would look like, you know, but it sometimes, but there's something about that character that's really familiar and works well with what I was reading in the book. And, you know, sometimes that's to me anyhow, the best way I know to describe it is about the core and the heart of the character that was in the original works in the first place. But with television, you know, sometimes it's just churn it out and just goes in a different direction altogether sometimes. And same with film too. But it's so quick, isn't it?
Yeah. But films just seem they're massive undertakings, aren't they?
Nice and slow, like me. I like it like that. Really, just taking my time with it and just, you know, trying to be meticulous. I'm not always meticulous, but, you know, I guess it depends sometimes too on what tools you have to work with from a production point of view. You know, sometimes you just, you know, sometimes some people have got $50 million budget, $10 million budget, you know, $100,000 budget, $20,000. Just varies, you know.
Also, I think the kind of story you're telling, like, I'm just thinking with that short story I wrote, like maybe actually the stage is the wrong medium for it to like be adapted to. I'm thinking about like television might be good. I might like it for the kinds of stories that I want to write. Like I couldn't write, you know, a feature film like with all my dick jokes. Maybe I could, you know, if it's good enough for Seth, what's his face, and Jonah Hill, then it's good enough for Nate Kagori. I always say that. That's my life motto. But I wonder if story dictates the medium as well. What do you reckon? So I'm not topping you. I'm just genuinely. I'm interested.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't know. I don't
Like,
know
we're
whether
not
it's so
singers.
much story that. I don't know whether it's so much story that would dictate the medium. I feel like sometimes the structure sometimes could dictate the medium. The structure of the original work, you know, of the play, and sometimes you look at it and then you look at it on the stage and you go, wow, this would really work on the screen. And then you think, what screen? Small screen or big screen? And you can see it, even if it's you can just see the world opening up if it's a one-hander. You go, wow, I can really see that as a feature. I don't know, there's various reasons. It could, you know, it's a combination of things that come together, the lighting, of course, the writing, you know, everything to do with the production will determine what you could initially see. But what I see that would work for a film, Naoka would see that would be awesome for a television series.
Like this would be a really good song.
Yeah, this would be a great song.
What?
You know, but
This would
again,
be such a good ballad.
but a musician would probably see something like that. Like, you know,
Bob Dylan, you don't want to get him in the theatre.
I don't know, it's that.
Off he goes. Sorry, I haven't been out of the house much.
I was thinking, we were talking very briefly backstage about our first televisual. Well, I was talking about my first televisual memory and how it kind of resonates with the story of the white girl, but with every Stolen Generation story ever told on screen. And that was that moment in the American drama series Roots, adaptation of the Alex Haley saga is the only word for that book. But in the late 70s, it was made into a television film, television series.
Yeah, 80s.
And my first memory is of a scene where Kizzy, who's the descendant of Kunta Kinte, the kind of, you know, main character of, I guess, in Roots, ancestral character, Kizzy is removed, and it's all down to the white girl with the ringlets is at the window, childhood friend, mocking Kizzy as she's taken away in the back of a wooden cart. Yeah. And I have not been able to ever erase the memory of that removal. And I don't know why it meant anything to me at the time. I didn't know about the Stolen Generations within my own family, but it spoke to some desperate kind of need inside of me, a knowledge inside of me that this had happened.
You see, this is the whole thing about us writing our own stories and creating our own narrative. This is the thing. The reason it resonated with you and I at that age was because we were looking at people of colour on the screen telling their stories that we could relate to, even though we didn't know it as little kids. You know, I remember that when you brought it up, actually, I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course. You know, that stuck in my mind too. It also stuck in my mind when Kizzy was an older woman. The matriarch of her family, was she was asked to get a cup of water for, I don't know if it was that same woman, I can't remember what character, but related to it, and she spat in the cup and handed it over, and it was the man actually, and he sculled the water down, and that stuck in my mind, and I remember thinking at the time too, you know, what is the meaning of that? And, you know, as a youngster, I was thinking, I figured, you know, worked it out eventually, and the parallels, as you know, they're so strong so similar because, you know, we're blackfellas. We can relate to being downtrodden like that, and our people and our nans, you know, our aunties, uncles, and we'd heard that anyhow. We'd grown up around something similar around that. You know, as youngsters, you think of it like that. So it was really powerful, those things. And so today, telling our stories and being able to tell our stories the way we want to tell our stories and put our stories on the screen, on the page, you know, is powerful for the same reasons, because the next generation are going to have this plethora of work that has been created now, and it's going to fill their souls with so much energy, and you know, it just, the mind boggles at what they are going to do. You know, because of this is a foundation that's being laid, you know, that we as creators are all laying for the next generation, because the generation prior to us, you know, the Alex Haley's of the world who were doing those they were the only kind of things that we could relate to on the screen and on the page, really en masse, on a international scale in those days, that we could really relate to. And that's why it resonated so strongly with us, because they're black people telling black stories with black leads and being powerful and being proud in the face of all that adversity. That's the power of the word, being able to do that. You know, it's just extraordinary work.
I mean, just on that televisual memory, do you have a really strong memory of something you first saw on TV that was perhaps, maybe not transformative, but just a really strong televisual memory? Because we're the screen generation, aren't we? We grew up around screens.
Yeah. I don't know. Nan and Granddad would put on, well, just when we're up in Bundy, would like, I think Once Were Warriors. I was like 5 or 6. Nan put it on. All the cousins were watching it. Just, you know, collectively, you know, trauma bonding, I guess. No, I'm kidding. But it was, yeah. I'm like, you know, it's a rough movie. I would have been, I don't know when it came out, but yeah, we're all watching it, sitting up. Nan put it on VHS, and like, it has its critiques now. It's interesting as an adult reading critiques. Someone had, was it Once We Were Poets, or there was in recent years, someone's responded to it, or Once We Were Gardeners or Philosophers or something. But yeah, it's funny, like the things that we latched on to earlier on, we realise like they're problematic in different ways. But I think, I mean, I guess more so for you fellas, I'm, you know, only 21, jamming, a bit younger, of a different generation. Yeah. So I probably had more, because of the work that other black fellas had done before. Yeah. So, but you latch on, no matter how problematic it is. You're not thinking about all of this as a 6-year-old. You're watching men fight in a bar on the screen, and that's the good bit in the movie. But you latch on to whatever representation you can find, because you're not seeing it anywhere else.
Whereas in the absence of representation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just grab it, and of course it sticks with you. And now I find it so funny that Nan would put that on. We'd stay at their place, and it was like, yeah, there was one really messed up Denzel Washington movie. I remember, like, why I have no business watching this. Anyway, love Nan and Grandad. But the other thing I wanted to say is it kind of reminds me of that sort of finding meaning where it may not even exist. I think I definitely did that in a queer sense as well. Like we interpret things, in the absence of representation.
We see the queer where there is no queer. Yeah.
Nayuka, that's a tree. I'm like, no, it's a gay tree.
It's a gay tree.
That tree is gay.
Gay as hell, that tree.
I mean, it might be. Yeah, I think I don't even remember your question now. But
Televisual memory.
Otherwise, it would have been like The Simpsons. Yeah, stuff like that.
Tony, what's your darkest or deepest televisual memory? Or visual memory from a screen memory, perhaps?
Well, I was born in '67, so it makes sense what you're saying. You had a lot more to kind of.
You're looking good.
Yeah, thank you. So when in the '70s, I would get up and early rise. I'd get up and I'd watch. I'd turn on this. Oh man, Gene Autry show. With that silver horse. I don't know if anybody was singing Cowboy. I used to watch him. The Ninja Japanese television series. I would always watch that. While I was perched up on the back of Mum's couch or something, jumping down on a samurai. That I would watch. Of course, all the repeats of Get Smart, all that kind of stuff. And that's the thing. We never had. And I think that's why I was drawn to those. Like the ninja, show. It was actually my favourite. I loved martial arts, but I could also relate to a different look on television. Different looking people on TV because I don't. At the time, of course, I didn't think about it. I was just entertained. But those are the kind of things that I grew up watching. But I was really lucky because my stepfather was in the American Air Force. And he was in charge of what they called, was billeting they called it. And so they get a lot of stuff in the early days too. I don't know I can't remember when they pulled out of the war, but the stuff was still going to Vietnam. And, he was in charge of all that kind of stuff. And a lot of things like magazines and, all the American, lollies, all that kind of stuff. We used to get in boxes, right? But not only that, he would also get films in, real 16mm films. So my mum, my dad and I, we would sit in our lounge room, and the three of us we'd put a curtain up. And
watch them on the old projector.
Yeah, we watched them on the old
so
projector,
cool.
And and Dad would be feeding the spool through, and that was my first experience with film. In my own living room.
You got to touch it.
Got to touch it. Got to play, and so I'm really conscious how fortunate I am. Very, very conscious how fortunate I am in that respect. So we got to watch because my dad was a Western nut. We got to watch all the spaghetti westerns, Bud Spence films, and I would be watching these films, And so when I look at someone like Quentin Tarantino, I can see that he's clearly had the same sort of influence. You just look at his work and you just go, this guy, he's just making his own version of these spaghetti westerns or these, So your influence comes from, the earliest part. And those I'm kind of, I'm just really lucky that I've had that sort of. And of course, Women of the Sun. These are kind of moments in my life that as I'm growing, I can remember like Women of the Sun because my late aunt co-wrote that with Sonia Borg, who Sonia Borg Hillis Maris. Yeah, Sonia Borg became my mentor, my very first mentor, and I started writing with her, and only Hillis influenced me to do it.
Don't steal my thunder. I actually wanted to bring up Women of the Sun because that story that your auntie Hillis worked on very closely, a story essentially about Kamragunjan, about the walk-off, which also intersected with Stolen Generations history.
Yeah.
Was the first time many people had, outside of our communities perhaps, had seen this thing we now call the Stolen Generations. It was a screen representation of a part of history that had been denied them or they had deliberately decided to ignore.
Yeah, I think because of the exposure that it had, I always like to, and I'm not, far be it for me to take anything away from anybody who's created anything, but I always like to think that we as Aboriginal artists, have had created something a long time ago before the public knew about this project. A long time before the Sapphires, long time before. It just wasn't given the kind of the push that it had deserved. I mean, you look. There was a lot of work before Women of the Sun and really incredible work by great filmmakers, great storytellers that just were not given that kind of exposure. So I always like to say, yes, it was the first, but it was the first one, absolutely, that got that kind of push and exposure,
I'm always about talking about, I've talked at every opportunity at the festival about legacies and about what we owe, at not just our ancestors, but our ancestors in a professional sense, everyone who ever did anything in the field that we're talking about. We can't put ourselves kind of up or raise our own profile without acknowledging what happened before, and that it is a long history and often a history that didn't make it to screen.
Yeah, but also, we have to acknowledge the future. We have to acknowledge the future that we're creating for, as well as the past that we are creating for. We have to. This is how I think about it. I feel like we sometimes forget that we're not just doing it for our nan's memory or our pop's memory. We're doing it for our nieces, our nephews. We're doing it for ourselves as well. We're doing it for the current generation as well, whether we're working together, whether we're working separately, whether we liked anybody, whether we don't like anybody. We're still doing it for those people, and we're creating for that. And you got to. I feel like I'm talking to myself here. You got to remember that you are, like you sort of touched on it before, that we sometimes don't feel like we are worthy of an HBO series. Why the hell not?
Oh no, I definitely think I am.
I know you definitely think you are. I definitely think I am. But sometimes there's been that kind of thread of in the back of your mind, because we haven't seen enough of ourselves on the screens, and it took people dying on the other side of the world for this country to start talking about equality, and start considering. And it took a massive hit for a lot of white people to make a shitload of money before they decided and realised, oh, we can make similar kind of money here. Now all the white producers want to tell our stories. Go figure. Surprise, surprise. They want our stories. They want to buy our rights to our stories, and they want to, well, we'll work with you, but we're going to call the shots. Not on my watch. Not the way. That's not the way I work. I'll work with them, but our stories are for our mob, and we got to tell them the way we need to tell them.
Interestingly, I didn't know. Well, it's not interesting that I didn't know something. There's a lot that I don't know. I didn't know about that series, but I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was in a bookstore in Traralgon, not of all places. That's, my family live out that way. But the fact that I found this book in a random bookshop there is the weird bit. It's a book about that series.
Roots.
Women of the Sun.
Women of the Sun?
Yeah, Women of the Sun.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually, it would have been probably 3 years ago, because I'm interested in black mothers as a political category, and as a what the construction of the black mother in a place like Australia. And so I'm kind of trawling archives and that sort of thing, and so I stumbled across this book. So it's interesting thinking about adaptation. Does the ABC still have that? I think it's also some of it aired on SBS.
It did indeed. SBS.
I've read that in the thing. Well, where is it? And how come I didn't know? If I hadn't stumbled across it in this random bookstore, where is it sitting? It's a really cool book as well. It I think it might have all the scripts from each episode.
It does. Yeah.
And rationale and that sort of thing. It's I was like, oh my God, this is magic. When does this ever happen?
It absolutely broke the ground. And I was 12 or 10 or 11. 12. 82 it came out, so I was 10. And I just remember we used to live across the road from the local Blackfellow Museum at South Tweed, and we had a special night where we all came together to watch every episode of Women of the Sun. And it was, it broke the ground from underneath me. It made me think, well, our stories, our history, our contemporary lives are actually, it's stuff that you should be seeing on the screen. It just made perfect sense to me. And that's why I quote it whenever I talk about this kind of stuff, about adaptation and screenwriting, because it changed the world as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's an interesting study of how you can come together with and tell a story with white fellas and black fellas telling this story and keeping focused on the end game. Because it was of course loose, based on our family history, but our family history is your family history is your family history. It's our mob. And it's really interesting to see how well it worked with white directors, but I know that it wasn't all rosy.
No.
It's interesting. Like something that we've all brought up is how, whether it's our first memories of television or screen, or what you were just talking about, how it's the bonding part is also a huge, is also really important. Like for me, I was just thinking about all the cousins at Nan and Granddad's, or like the joy of watching, or the melancholy of watching something with someone else and witnessing something with people you love.
Experiencing it together.
Yeah. And like if there's something ritualistic about that, or
we did Bob West, the producer of Women of the Sun, took it up for, I can't remember what, 20th anniversary or 30th anniversary or something. I don't know. Some anniversary,
40 years this year, I think.
40 years this year, so it was probably about the 20th or something like that. And we went up to Yirrkala, went up to the community and screened it up there, and all the, and it was just, it was most beautiful thing to see. We played it on the basketball court up there, and all the kids were laughing at their auntie with no tops on, and they were cracking up. It was the funniest things, and they were playing out, some of the scenes, and they just laughed, and they were just enthralled. It's just, and a lot of old people who were no longer with them, with that community, and so there was that discussion prior to all that anyway, and it was just, and you're right, it's a real, I don't know, it's something for us. It's different.
I think it's a filmmaking by its very nature, or writing for screen or adapting for screen, is a collective experience.
It should be.
Yeah, it needs to be. It can't possibly be one auteur behind
it is a collective
everything.
experience.
It's a collective experience.
Yeah, no matter which way you look at it,
you can't do it on your own.
No.
So
I mean, someone told Tyler Perry that, but
yeah, he's got his big studio with old slave quarters.
Someone told Ivan Sen that as well. I mean, he's another filmmaker who does everything: cinematography,
no need,
composition.
No need.
Well, Ivan Sen does all that too.
That's what I'm saying.
You're talking about Ivan.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you're talking about
outsource.
Maybe I said Juro Sen, but I meant Ivan Sen. Juro is one of his brothers. So from that televisual memory and Women of the Sun, what's the kind of screen culture that you want us to? What kind of black screen culture can you envision? Is there a black screen culture that you're envisioning now?
Well, the world is it's like simultaneously a million things are possible, but also there are floods and fires and plagues. So it's hard to know how much of a future there's going to be for our kids and grandkids and so on. But young blackfellas already make their own content. I'm not on TikTok because I hate being bad at things. Hate doing new things. I stopped at Bebo. No, they're amazing. They're young. We are more than capable. It's there's still gatekeeping and that sort of thing. But I'm really excited about the future of what little there is left with climate. Sorry, it's just, climate change and stuff. But the apocalypse is going to be lit. No, I'm really excited about the sort of diversity that we're seeing. Right now, Enoch and Davey are over in Lille at Series Mania. With an extremely queer show that was shown over there, and Nakia was over there. I remember a couple of years ago.
All My Friends Are Racist. You're talking about?
Yeah. All My Friends Are Racist. Please watch it. It's very
Did
funny.
you get in the writers' room?
I was. Yeah. I mean, Enoch is a very, very, and Davey.
Enoch
I was
Malangi
in.
and Davey Thompson. Davey
Thompson. Yeah.
Enoch Malangi.
Enoch. I was in. Yeah. I was in.
Because you're good mates with
early.
Enoch. I knew that you.
Yeah, like very early, and then it's interesting how Kill Your Darlings, I suppose, like how things change, but it's incredible. So like that's really exciting. And then TikTok for me is really exciting. Like that's Sissy who told Pauline Hanson. Pauline Hanson was like, well, where am I from if I'm not Indigenous? And Sissy Girl was like, England.
So good.
And then she made a TikTok of herself with Megan Thee Stallion in the background being like, something, what's that song? Is that bitch will always be that bitch. And it's her. I'm just like, blackfellas, I love our people. So I don't just want, I think we're in a stage where, we're going to have a diversity, and it's not just like, like palatable, nice black stuff. It'll be all like super traumatic viewing. I think we're going to
everything.
Yeah.
Mediocre, and people who make mistakes and stuff up, and maybe we need, maybe there'll be black villains, who knows? I'm excited, but also climate change. Yeah.
Climate change.
Can you see an emerging black screen? I mean, obviously your history is very long in the field, Tony. But is there something that's particularly exciting about? Nayook is talking about TikTok and people self-publishing and storytelling without a publisher, without a broadcaster, even. They're telling their stories.
Well, what I think is exciting is that we don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
That's what's really exciting.
We don't know what platforms we're going to have in.
I mean,
6 months.
It wasn't that long ago that nobody knew anything about platforms. Paramount, Netflix, et cetera. And then when they came along, it was like, and then next thing you know, they're taking over the world. So I'm kind of excited about that insofar as. This next generation are all over this stuff, and they can edit, they can shoot, they can they can create all these things that, some people, my generation would have, and before, had to spend 4 years at university to bloody get a starting job position. They can do all this stuff now in the palm of their hands. And I'm just curious, and I'm just really excited to see what the future holds, because I feel like that the future, the foundation, they couldn't do any of this, though, without the foundations that have been laid by us and the foundation that have been laid by the people beforehand. So it kind of excites me to think what the combination of that is going to be for the next sort of, time moving forward.
I think it's interesting. I think what a lot of, I guess, people in my generation, but also even younger now, as young as I am, there were huge institutional battles fought by blackfellas, in order for us to have the opportunities we have now.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of, Screen Australia and, there's the stuff, that blackfellas there have done. There have been big fights that have happened. Things don't just magically happen.
No.
They've fought for.
Yeah.
So I do wonder how powerful will institutions be for
At all, or if at all.
Yeah, and then with the ability to publish your own stuff or produce your own stuff. I think that I'm really interested to see how yeah, that all plays out.
Well, that that depends on them. That depends on how willing they are to let go of the control, so to speak. Well, not so to speak. Let go of the control, because, like I said before, we're kicking the doors down. And when I say we, I mean black creatives are kicking the doors down, now, and have always been doing that.
I don't think there's any frame left on that door. But
No, there's no frame left. It's
the
gone.
house is knocked down.
We're
They
just
knocked the
walking
house
through
down.
that big gap that was knocked down a long time ago, and we're moving forward. We're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it anyway, and I think it depends on those institutions, the decisions they make moving forward, if they're going to be relevant or not.
Can you please join me in thanking Tony Briggs and Nayuka Gori? We have 5 minutes for questions from the audience, if there are any questions.
Please,
Yeah.
please, a question.
And there's a microphone, so if you just...
Not a comment.
And questions.
This is a question to both of you. Like, when I was growing up, I was born in '69, so not too far behind you, Tony. I guess I remember watching this show. My mother's favourite actor was Sidney Poitier, and God bless him, he just recently
Rest his
passed
soul.
away. But that was a film that really influenced me when I was a child, because it kind of prepared me to think, this is what I'm going to have to put up with as a black man.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Guess
You're
who?
talking about? The film?
No, this is To Sir With Love.
To Sir With Love.
Yeah. So, some of the racism that he sort of had to put up with going through, some of the kids who, I don't know if they're educated, it's probably an influence of their parents as well. Like, there's a continuation of, that influence that still holds true today. But I just wanted to ask the question, who was your, I guess, favourite actor or actress, and did you have that moment where you just went, right, this person's amazing, they've actually influenced me to do what I'm doing now, or actually be who I'm going to be?
Is it me? Would you?
You go.
My Sidney Poitier was my hero, and he and Harry Belafonte were my heroes. But it wasn't until I saw David Gopalou on the screen that I was really affected. And he is the reason that I decided I wanted to be an actor. And so those stories, it's those stories that were told, like A Patch of Blue, for example, that Sidney Poitier did. Does anybody remember the lady's name? Shelley Winters. Was it Shelley Winters?
Patch of Blue?
Patch of Blue?
Maybe.
Anyway, like, it's a love story. And it was so beautiful story. And so, seeing the types of stories that Sidney Poitier was telling, had a massive influence on me and how I related to other people as I grew. I, of course, didn't know this until I was much older. And, how I could relate to white people, and how, like, he was just so articulate and so intelligent and but never lost sight of his pride. He was always super proud and would never take a backward step, but he would do it with class. A lot of dignity, yes, yeah. So, like, he was my hero, and the effect that he had on, everybody, all people of colour, and obviously a lot of people, a lot of white people all over the world. But it wasn't until I saw Sidney Poitier, till I saw David Gopalou, that I really wanted to. He just changed my life.
Just remember Storm Boy, how massive that film was, his representation in Storm Boy. But he was in a lot of films in the 70s.
Well,
Walkabout.
Walkabout is the
Nicholas
film
Roeg.
I'm
He was
referring to.
in his bag.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
He
yeah.
was 16 years old, I think, when he did
Yeah.
that. Like 16.
Yeah.
And he just, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
He carried the whole film. He's just charisma and his culture. And I was like,
I look at that film very critically now, but I can't. You can't flaw his. There's a flawless performance.
I think it's a flawless performance too, yeah.
I think to answer your question, I have no interest in acting. I like it's an art form in and of itself. I much prefer to be behind the laptop or behind the camera. But yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know which writer made me want to be a writer. I only started getting into writers' rooms maybe 6 years ago. It was not a thing that I saw for myself at all. I've always loved television. And those 3 months I was at home really depressed, didn't leave the house in 2013, I can now see as research, not just unemployment. You can be doing both. But there was one novel I read actually. This was after I started getting into TV stuff. It's called Oreo by Fran. What is Fran Kelly?
Fran Kelly?
Is that her name? Can someone? No, I'm thinking of that old white woman. No, what is her name? Crystal? Can you? The book. Oreo novel. Can someone Google it? Fran Ross. Thank you so much, Fran Kelly. How dare I?
Fran Ross, Oreo.
No, Fran Kelly. Oh, I've met her. She's your colleague. I'm going to shut up. Fran Ross. She wrote a novel called Oreo, and I love that book. I don't know if there's anyone in the crowd that's read it. I think she wrote it in the 70s or maybe the 80s, but she it was one book she wrote, and I don't think she published anything else. But when I read the book and then learnt more about her, a black woman, she used to write for Richard Pryor. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I just thought that was really cool. And I was like, oh, this is, black women making black men look good. There's a long legacy of that. No, Gavin.
It's universal.
that. But he had such a filthy sense of humour, and knowing that she was probably in the room writing those jokes too, what an icon.
Yeah.
And a bit queer too.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're out of time. Can you please thank Tony Bridge and Nadia Gagori? And I'd like to quickly mention the last event of the festival is Our Bogong. It's a celebration of sharing and crafted spoken word pieces. You could grab a drink and hang around for pizza afterwards. Nadi Simpson, Declan Fry, Tara June Winch, Victor Roger, Emily Munro Harrison, Nayuk, Claire G. Coleman and Nadia Gagori. At 7 to 9 p.m. at the Comedy Republic, $15 or $20 on the door. And I don't think you need to book. Just wander on down to the Comedy Republic at 7 p.m.
Let's do it. Woo!
Thank you.